Hi, this is Jeff Schoenbauer, and this video is about a custom bass boat I built a couple years ago. I'll start with some video of the boat on the lake, and then I'll just talk you through the design process and the design features. The design for my boat is based on my own research over the years and experience with boats. I'm not a boat designer per se or an engineer, but I had built a previous small, earlier version of this boat, if you will, and used that as kind of a starting point to figure out what I wanted to do with the next boat. The basic design ideas, I wanted it to be small enough to be convenient, but I also wanted it large enough to be able to handle occasional big waters. From time to time I've gotten caught in some heavy waves on some bigger lakes, and it's performed really well in that regard, so I feel safe with the boat at all times. I wanted it to be an extremely stable platform for myself and others that I have on the boat, varying sizes, so it's proven to be very stable in that regard. I wanted it to be easy to move around while I'm on the boat, particularly going from the front to the captain's chairs without having to go up and down and so forth, so I can move around quickly on the lake. I wanted it to be easy trailering, drive-on trailer, where one person could handle it easily. And I wanted it to be easy and light to tow behind the vehicle in my RV as I travel. The basic size of the boat is 13.5 feet long and 6 feet wide, and I went fairly aggressively on the width because, again, I wanted a very stable platform. I would call it a modified catamaran type of boat, maybe a tunnel boat design. It's kind of a mix between the two. And again, what I was trying to achieve is just having extremely stable platform that I can stand on any corner of the boat without it deflecting much. The other thing that I found to be really advantageous with this particular design is that I can cut through waves pretty well. And I never really feel like it's a rough ride or anything like that when I go across lakes, whether it's smooth or rough out. Performance-wise, the boat will go about 22 miles an hour with one person on board, 20 miles an hour with two people on board. Runs very smoothly with the 30-horse Suzuki that I put on it, trim and tilt. And I'm really pleased with its overall performance, smoothness of the ride, and just how the boat has performed relative to what I was hoping for when I designed and built it. So, very happy with it. I also designed the boat to nest nicely behind our RV, and it allows us to take our bikes, take apart canoe, which I have a different video about, as well as my wife's solo canoe on a removable rack on the boat trailer. So this is an outfit that we take basically all over the place, and we have all of our toys with us, including the boat. Here's the hand sketch of the boat's layout and dimensions, basically 6 feet wide, 13.5 feet long. The one thing that I found as I worked with the boat is I needed to push the console and the chairs further forward than I anticipated to get the boat to plane out better and distribute the weight more evenly across the boat. And once I had that figured out, in addition to the motor height, the prop, and so forth, it comes out of the hole very quickly and planes very quickly. This image shows the basic cross section of the boat, 6 feet wide, 18 inches deep, and you can see the basic dimensions, which stayed pretty true to what I actually built. I modified it a little bit here and there, but basically it's pretty close to the dimensions that I ended up using. I started the project by building the trailer first, and then I used that trailer as my platform to actually build the boat on it. It worked very well, allowed me to move it around in and out of the garage and so forth and outside. I also, you can see here, started to cut the materials for the cross sections or the frame of the boat itself. Here I'm starting to assemble the boat with the cross pieces. They're spaced about every 2 feet. A really important point here is that I used for the hull itself high-grade British standard marine plywood. 3/8 inch for much of the hull, 1/2 inch for the deck. The 3/8 inch allowed me to work with it in terms of bending it and so forth where I needed to. And this stuff was really great to work with, and I would really encourage using it for the boat. Continuing along then on framing it out, as you can see, I used epoxy fillets and so forth for adhering the plywood to itself and to wood members. I used a few screws here and there, but generally speaking, I used epoxy fillets throughout. Here I'm starting to add some of the hull materials as I go along, and I glued it in using epoxy each step of the way. Here I'm showing the basic framework supporting the deck and the chairs and the console and so forth. Pretty straightforward, dimensional materials, lumber used for all of that. You can see the drain tubes that I'm putting in for each of the individual hatches so that I could drain those away from the hull itself and out the back of the boat. Here you're seeing a lot of the closed cell foam that I used and put into all of the voids wherever I could fit it, so that if I ever had a mishap, that the boat would never sink per se. And that seemed to work out really pretty well. This image shows the development of the storage areas underneath each of the hatches, and the black there is just additional foam that I painted black. You can see the wiring. All of this is observable from the hatches because I have a removable panel within each of the hatches, so that it allows me to basically see every part of the inner hull from the various hatches, to make sure that I don't have any leakage problems along the way, or if I had any structural damage, that I could find it and see it and fix it. So here's that panel that's removable, and that's within each of the different hatches that I created. Now you can see me gluing down the deck boards as I assemble it. Another view of the support structure and the gluing down process. I made all of the hatch frames myself, and pretty straightforward. The transom itself is almost 2 inches thick. Worked out really well. I overbuilt it initially in terms of height so that I could cut it down as I got familiar with how I wanted to mount the engine and so forth along the way. Here I'm showing that the hull material is being put on, and it's 3/8 inch British grade marine plywood on the hull, and the deck is 1/2 inch marine grade material, and I found that to all work out quite well. I shaped all the edges once that was all together with primarily with a rotary sander, and that worked really well to get the kind of radius I wanted on those edges. Here you're seeing the tunnel hull from the front and the tunnel from the back, and the key thing here is to make sure that the tunnel height is somewhere less than 4 inches, I learned along the way, which helps avoid cavitation and ventilation issues with the outboard as you mount that and get the height and prop adjusted for optimal performance. Once I had the hull sanded and shaped, I laid on a 17-ounce layer of fiberglass cloth and wetted that out using a high-quality marine epoxy. And that was a beast to wet out, and but it definitely has made for a very durable hull in concert with the marine plywood. It did take me about 40 hours plus to sand it all out to where I was satisfied with it and had it ready for painting, but again, it was definitely worth using marine plywood and a good quality fiberglass cloth and epoxy. Once that was all ready, I went ahead and painted it using Easy Epoxy paint. I think I have about 4 coats on here, and if you follow the instructions diligently, it really does produce a pretty decent paint material that's quite durable. Finally, I was at a point where I could take it out to the lake and do a float test, and just to make sure that it floated. To my great satisfaction, it floated as expected, instantly proved to be very stable, as I was hoping for, and put me in a position to go ahead and finish it up. As you can see here, I'm getting closer now to putting the carpet on. I sealed the entire deck surface with epoxy to make sure that I had a waterproof finish. And here's the final walk around. I added a 55-pound thrust Minn Kota trolling motor with a 12-volt battery. That works great. You can see the finished hull design here, and once I got the motor height and the prop properly selected, I'm very pleased with how the boat comes out of the water in planes. As you can see, I pushed the console and chairs as far forward as possible to shift that weight forward as much as I could without cramping the front area, and that's worked out really well. I also, on the trailer, have the ability to add a canoe with a removable rack, as you see there in the image. Importantly, I added a manual jack plate on the back, which allowed me to tweak the engine height to get it optimal, which can be a little tricky with a tunnel hull. And I also increased the transom angle with a wedge plate so that it allowed me to use the trim and tilt feature on my motor a little more effectively to help me get on plane. As you continue to walk around, the simple handrails have proven to be about right in terms of something to hang on to in rough water, but yet they don't get in the way. And as you can see, I've got a total of 6 hatches, which is ample room for all of my gear and so forth. I recessed the foot pedal on the trolling motor, which is common on a lot of bass boats nowadays, and I like that feature. And the hatches have simple hand grips and so forth, which have proven to be very durable. The hatch itself has a self-draining mechanism, so basically in rainy weather or if I ship some water, I have no problem keeping that out of the hull and drain out the back of the boat. And finally, as you can see, it performs really well, and I am able to go out and fish all types of water across the country. Thank you.